During my lifetime as an artist and art student, as well as an art teacher, I have learned early on that shading lends itself to realism. Realism on a flat two-dimensional surface lends itself to roundness. So if we want to make something look realistic on a drawing, we have to make it look round. In order to make it look round or three-dimensional on a two-dimensional surface, we have to add shading. Okay, so with that knowledge, we're going to get into drawing this slithering snake. So it has a roundness factor to it. It has depth. So the sheet of paper is two-dimensional. It has height and it has length. But once we start to add some shading in there, it's going to give our snake some roundness, which is the third, put my three fingers there, third dimension, which is depth. Now, some art teachers say width. I think of width as the same as length, and I think of my own self and my body weight. So when I go to the doctor measures how tall I am, which is height, and the doctor measures how much I weigh, which means I'm expanding this way. So hopefully I'll not expand that way. Anyway, with that said, let's draw our slithering snake with height and length, and then we're going to add the shading for that third dimension, which is realism or roundness. We talk about form when we're talking about three dimensions, and we talk about shape when we're talking about two dimensions. To start off with, we need to draw our diagonal wavy line. Now, this is a wavy line. Many of my students will draw a line that is wiggly or squiggly. That means it has more bumps in it. It's more complicated. So let's just make it a gentle wave. And then we are going to go back up to the right hand corner here because our line is diagonal. It's the direction of the line. And we're going to start to draw this line again. Now when we do so, we're going to start off close to that line. And as we travel down, we're going to talk about space here. This line in relationship to that line and the space between it. We want it to be narrow, and as we travel down, we want it to get wider and wider to give our snake some form. And then we can round off its head. Now, we are going to add some curvy lines in here to also indicate roundness. The best way I like to explain this is by using my pointer finger or several of my fingers as a spacer. 2 fingers or 1 finger. I'm going to do 1 finger, and I'm going to draw these curvy lines. 1 finger and these curvy lines. And then we divide its head here. Now that I have those in place, I am going to add some eyes. Of course, you are welcome to draw your eyes any way you want. I'm just going to stick with what I already did. And some nose holes, and then its tongue. I'm going to use slight curved lines, and then the idea of a zigzag for a forked tongue. So again, we have a shape right now. Shape equals 2D, or two-dimensional height and length. We want to transform our shape to have depth. It equals 3D, to be more realistic. To do that, we're going to use value. Value is an element of art that uses one color. We want to show that one color with its intensity of light to dark, dark to light, whichever way. I'm going to start off dark, which means I'm going to press really hard. And notice I changed how I'm holding my pencil. If I hold my pencil the typical writing way, I'm going to be using the point and I'm going to get a very narrow line. If I hold it on its side, I have all of that part of the pencil exposed on the paper, and it goes a little faster and it looks smoother. So if I press really hard, it's going to be super dark. As I go across and I lighten up the pressure of my body on the pencil, it's going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. So now that we have our value, we can apply our shading. So again, value is one color from lightness to darkness. We have to decide where the light source is. Now for me, it makes sense for the light to be up here, shining across the snake. So we can always draw something that indicates the light source. So all these little arrows are showing where the light is going to hit the snake. That means there's going to be limited shading on that side. This is the side that's going to have the darkest shading. So I'm going to take that dark value and apply it along its body because it's going to cast a shadow on the surface that it's traveling on. And as I go out, I'm going to lighten my pressure, and I'm going to have this medium dark value. And I can continue that by lightening the pressure of my pencil, getting lighter and lighter. However, there is another way to make that light, and I'll show you in just a moment here. But first of all, this is super dark along here, so the shading I'm putting along the side of the spider is going to be a little lighter than that, kind of like this value, so that it doesn't blend in with the shadow it's casting. Now we could press really hard to get our dark value, or we can add layers of pencil onto itself, and that makes it dark. Okay, so now that I have that in place, what I'm going to do is get a tissue. I have a tissue, and I can tear a piece of the tissue off, paper towel, napkin, whatever you have, and I can roll this up into a blending stick. You can also purchase blending sticks, but this works just fine. I just wrapped it on itself, rolled it up, folded it over because it was a bit flimsy. Okay, and now I have this cushiony part right here that I can use to blend this. Now, of course, you could use your finger, but then your fingers get dirty, and then you put graphite where you don't want it, like on your face. Not saying that I ever did that. And I'm going to pull it out because it's on this tissue. I can pull it out into this space. Alright, and then I'm going to blend in the graphite on the side of the snake, trying to leave a highlight. Alright, so we have a shadow, now we have a highlight where the light is hitting the snake. Okay, so as I'm looking at my snake, I can make some additional choices here. If I had shaded in or blended in the graphite right here, I could take an eraser and erase that away. And now it's highlighted again. So I can go back and I can clean some of that up and give it a nice highlight where the light is hitting it. This one here, I made those little sections, the division sections, those rings, puff out. How did I do that? I added a curve on the outside, which then means I need to erase that little line there. Now, I'm not going to erase it. I'm just going to blend it in with some coloring or shading. Now the other thing that you might be wondering is, well, it's a snake, shouldn't it have scales? Of course, you can add scales. You can use different lines to show those scales. So for example, if this is going to be puffed out, these rings, I may want to add a little extra darkness right in there so they look like they're puffed out. Going back to the scales though, I could use bumpy lines for scales or curvy lines. I could use wavy lines that are crossing over each other, and that makes it look like scales. I could use zigzag lines to make it look like scales. And I could use little circles that are next to each other, or ovals. There are many different ways you can make an object look like it has texture. By repeating lines in a sequence, or randomly for that matter, you can make an object look like it has a texture. So now our snake is complete. And we looked at how shape, which is two-dimensional, length and height, can be transformed. All right, we had length and, we had height and we had length, and we added our three-dimensional quality here of value with our shading. Shading is the application of that value so that it makes it look realistic or rounded. And we have our highlight and we have our shadows. Alrighty, well, this is A.M. Snyder. Very thankful that you have joined me on this video on how to apply shading and value to make a shape look three-dimensional, to add depth, take it from shape to form. It's an illusion that there's roundness there and you can pick it up, but it's really flat in the end, right? Well, thank you again for joining me, and if you are interested in further videos, please check out SnyderSunshineArtStudio.com or check out more videos here at YouTube on my playlist. Until next time, enjoy drawing and keep shining some creativity into your world.